Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion and the beautiful Katie, and we're coming to you from Battle Creek, Michigan. We're here for a Del Shannon festival, but I didn't want to come here without checking out. They have a museum that has some of John Harvey Kellogg's medical inventions, and if you don't know, Kellogg cereal, a lot of cereals were invented here, but it all came from one man who actually was running a sanitarium here and was trying to promote good health. And so we're going to explore some of his life today, and we're taking you with us. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all begins right now. It's right here at the Welcome Center, Battle Creek of Historic Adventist Village and John Harvey Kellogg Discovery Center. So here's the man, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. What an eccentric he was. Dedicated his whole life to trying to promote good living and had all kinds of crazy ideas and devices that he created to help facilitate that. He built a whole sanatorium here in town, and people would come from pretty much all over the world, you can see, to try and get healthy. A lot of it started originally with the idea of sanitarium baths. That's why they have the bath here. And then when he went to study medicine and to become a doctor, he started to move away from that and started coming up with his own ideas of good health. So a lot of the stuff in here is what he created. Now, some of the things that they talk about here, he was anti-sex, he was anti-tobacco, he was anti-meat. He thought that the healthiest way to live was through vegetables only. And he always dressed in white because he believed that white absorbed light and it would actually make you cooler. And he actually got his start because of these two, the Whites. They were Seventh-day Adventist, and they were big and popular here in town because of Ellen would have these visions, and they ended up meeting him, John Harvey, when he was a young man, and they liked him and took him under their wing. And they originally owned the grounds that the baths were on and had him come to run the place. And that's when he in return ended up getting into medicine. And then it was said that later on, when he started developing his own ideas, he would go in and kind of like subliminally feed them to her, and then she would have them in her vision, so it would make it almost like it was coming from a higher power. They ended up having a fire during the time of the sanitarium, and he ended up just rebuilding the whole thing bigger and better than ever. And his younger brother was the famous W.K. Kellogg, who we knew cornflakes, but it was actually John Harvey that created cornflakes for the sanitarium. So start over here, they have his white suit. He always wore this up until basically when the Depression happened. People couldn't afford to come here anymore, and the place basically went under, the whole sanitarium. So he moved to Miami Beach, I believe, or Miami City, Florida, and basically just started wearing G-strings, no kidding. But this was something he invented. It was a light therapy machine. So you would go in there, sit down, close this on top, close that, close this, and then the lights in there was, they describe it, they say, one of the 8 health principles used at what was called the SAN. They would call the sanitarium here the SAN. In the treatment for arthritis, lung infections, skin disorders, infections, depressions, etc. A lot of people back then were being treated for nervousness, anxiety. So you can see over here, even in the photo there, people laying as though they're getting massages and they're getting heat therapy. We found an interview with one of his neighbors, and she said he used to ride his bike in that white suit every single morning all over town, and there's his bike. Now that's a vibrotherapy machine. Katie, if you push that button.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you push the button, it will actually show how it works. So keep pushing it. See how it's massaging? And he created that where we've seen that, you stand in there and it vibrates you. It says, the 4 machines in this section were used by Dr. Kellogg as a means to temporarily improve a patient's blood circulation. However, the 8 lifestyle health principles used at the Adventist Sanitarium tended towards a more permanent improvement circulation. Look, it's like run by like a bicycle chain.
It's called a kneading machine.
Stimulate sluggish bowels, tones, and the muscles of the buttocks. This one in particular. And then that one, we've seen in like tons of old silent movies and stuff where like Laurel and Hardy were trying to lose weight and stuff. And then that was also a machine that you would either put your back on or your feet. And there they have a photo of people doing it. Okay, we have a vibrating chair here. She's got the vibrating chair.
Whoa, that is wild.
The description says it helps in overcoming nervous fatigue and muscular weakness, aids in the relief of constipation, and assists blood circulation. Katie, do you feel that it would have done all that for you?
I don't know. I don't know why it would overcome nervousness when it feels a little nerve-wracking to be sitting in it.
Well, that was the funny thing. A lot of his stuff had to do with apparently during the time, like the late 1800s, people were eating a lot of fatty foods and like greasy foods, and so people had irritated bowels and they were coming here to get their digestive system back on track. So this was one of the inventions. Now that's the famous colonic machine. These are all things that he came up with. I mean, people are doing colonics now. It says, these devices were widely used at the stand to treat toxicity and constipation brought on by typical diet and lifestyle of the day. So it basically flush out your bowels. And it's got like a little lemonade spigot at the bottom. This place is amazing. I'm so glad this exists here.
Vibrator. Whoa.
She's using the foot vibrator.
These have a lot of power to them. I mean, I'm very surprised.
It says improves circulation, relaxes muscles, and soothes nerves. This looks like a time clock. I wonder if this was used there. He didn't really, even though, it cost a lot to come here and stuff, he put all the money back into the place, and even the people that worked here basically just got room and board because he thought that working for him in this environment was its own reward. Making people well was its reward. Now this one's called the trunk twister. Exercises and reduces body trunk. So it looks like you sit in it, hold on to the sides, and then twist in like a chair. Which a lot of his ideas came back to aerobics or calisthenics, or basically just moving your body and getting sun. Here is Estelle Eggleston's nursing uniform from 1915. She was a graduate of the Sanitarium School of Nursing. She and her sister Ruth came from Kansas to study with their uncle, Dr. Elmer Eggleston, was one of the staff at the hospital. She was a surgical nurse who enjoyed her career of helping others. She later married Roland T. Cummings, who was a member of the Pioneer family in Calhoun County. They had 3 children and continued to live in the area. Oh, cool. She was a local. Stayed local. This is an original painting that used to hang in the sanitarium. The Battle Creek Sanitarium is what it was called. It actually, people say, he put Battle Creek on the map. Here we have a desk and a cabinet of, you can see on the top he's got wheat germ and Postus cereal, which was the original, well, basically Mr. Post came here as a patient and learned how they were making their cereal that was only sold here, and then he started making his own, and it was Postum cereal right there. So this town became like the cereal capital of the world because of John Harvey. He was trying to make a, basically like a nice vegetarian option for his guests, and was trying to recreate like cream of wheat, and ended up stumbling on how to make the flakes. So that's all stuff from back at the sanitarium. Brochures. It wasn't until his brother, who was William Keith Kellogg, he was running the section of coming up with the foods, and he finally just decided to break away and start creating Kellogg's Corn Flakes, and he was the one that is responsible for the whole cereal fortune, not John Harvey. Here's a photo of a surgery happening, and he actually went and was licensed with the Board of Surgeons, and it says, as a young medical student, John Kellogg disliked doing surgeries, but later he became famous for his surgical skills. Over 22,000 surgeries were done during his life. Surgeons from around the world, such as the Mayo brothers, came to Battle Creek to study his techniques. Mayo brothers, I'm assuming Mayo Clinic. This says a good surgeon needs very steady hands. So this, you can test your steadiness by not, oh, see, I already did. Dead. Over here we have a wheelchair. So here we have a light bed. It says Dr. Kellogg invented the whole light bed concept soon after his friend Thomas Edison perfected the light bulb. These became very popular, especially in Europe. One probably similar to this was in the Titanic, it says. There you can see all the lights in there. Kind of sounds like an early tanning bed. And look how big that thing is. You could fit your whole body obviously in there. You'd have to. And this is showing everybody doing aerobics at the sanitarium. And it was saying that he was the first to encourage cardiovascular exercise performed to recorded music. So Richard Simmons owed him a big one. Okay, look at all of this stuff. Holy cow. Hold on just one second, Katie. Look at this. This is a adjustable wrist exerciser. And you do it with both. Yeah, I can definitely see the benefit to that. Here's a woman laying on an electric bed, and they have one here. Using electricity, this bed passively exercises the muscles of patients who can't move. Similar devices are used today for muscle toning. Fascinating. Here's a diameter. I don't even know what all this does. Let's see. It's mounted into the wall up here. They do have a poster of someone using it. Looks like it's kind of like a Bowflex, like an all-in-one machine. It says that this would test the strength of 30 muscle groups. The results were charted on a graph like this, one that they have on the wall. And it says, based upon the results, an individual's exercise plan was developed from this. Fascinating. Now look at that. That's the mechanical gym, the mechanical horse. This could be found in places like the Titanic, Buckingham Palace, and the White House. Eleanor Roosevelt is standing next to one in the photo on the wall over here. And look at that. I love that they have this to where they all still work and you don't have to like guess. Look at that. Here's one being used. Eleanor Roosevelt's watching. That looks like a rolling pin back there, and that's a wrist exerciser. You could just twist it. Then of course a boxing bag, a rowing machine. He gets credit for all these. It's really interesting. This is identical copy of this was Sanitarium. Oh, this was the one from the Sanitarium, but identical was on the Titanic. And they have the Titanic's life preserver up there. And that was also a rowing device. You could use that as like a rower. And there's a guy up here using it. This black thing on the wall is another grip exerciser. The mechanical camel over here. Recommended for digestion. So it just works everything loose. And then exercise sticks and dumbbells. I'm guessing this must have been on the board at the Sanitarium or on a wall somewhere, but it says, the great physician. God works through agencies, but it is he that works. The physician does not heal us. The treatments do not heal us. It is the divine power working through all agencies employed that heals. Let us all lay hold of this great source of comfort and cheer. And if we feel disheartened and gloomy, look up, for there is a great power who is able to do for us all that we need to have done. Medical Director John Harvey Kellogg. So that was John Harvey when he was a young man, first studying medicine. He actually wanted to be a teacher, but it was the white family that talked him out of it. And then this was him in his older days. Here's some workers in the Sanitarium cooking the meals, and they actually have like a Thanksgiving menu here to see what these people would get to eat. It looks horrifying. The menu says mussel stock clam bouillon, vegetarian oyster soup, sunflower mayonnaise, nut turkey with dressing, cranberry sauce, nut chicken croquettes with mashed potato border, apple and celery salad. Oh man. Granose lemon pie, peanut pound cake, grape juice, malted nuts, mixed nuts, fresh fruits, almond butter. Huh. And crazy enough, he invented something back in the day that was using peanuts, and it was a spread that he called nut butter. And he actually did patent it. It was the earliest version of peanut butter. And this is what he sold. This was his cereal that he sold at the Sanitarium. Toasted wheat flakes. Kellogg Food Company. So it was a little confusing because there was Kellogg Food Company and Kellogg's Corn Flake Company. There you can see the nut butter. And there's an ad for those toasted wheat flakes. Since he's buried here in town, we should go out and see his and his brother's grave who started Kellogg cereal. On our way to the cemetery, this is the Sanitarium. This is what's left of it. It's now a government building, but this was from when it was still in operation. You can see the porticos and everything from the old photos. It says the Battle Creek Sanitarium opened in 1866 as the Western Health Reform Institute. The institute was founded by health principles advocated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In 1876, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg became the medical superintendent at the Sanitarium. Kellogg's many innovations include the use of radiation therapy for cancer patients and the invention of flake cereal. The Sanitarium burned in 1902. The following year, a 6-story Italian Renaissance Revival style building designed by Dayton, Ohio architect Frank Andrews was constructed. Kellogg's brother, W.K. Kellogg, worked at the Sanitarium for 26 years before leaving to establish the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company. The Battle Creek Sanitarium is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So when it all changed over, it actually happened 1928. It was enlarged with a 14-story tower addition and dining room. After the stock market crashed in 1929, business declined. The facility went into receivership in 1933. The Sanitarium continued to occupy the site until 1942, when the U.S. Army purchased the buildings and established the Percy Jones Hospital. Hospital specialized in neurosurgery, plastic surgery, and the fitting of artificial limbs. Approximately 100,000 military patients were treated at this hospital before it permanently closed in 1953. It's really cool that it's still here, honestly. That some of it is still around, the history that actually built this, what brought people to this town. That's very cool. Just so we can kind of say that we walk the grounds. Really is a cool story. If you want to know more, check out some of the documentaries online. Fascinating history to this. Oak Hill Cemetery, 1844. So there are several people buried in this cemetery that I mentioned, so we'll just see them all. We'll go to Ellen White's grave first. They have a big sign, so it's easy to find. James and Ellen White were among the founders of the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which was organized in Battle Creek in 1863. Long participants in the Adventist movement, they came to Battle Creek in 1855 when the Adventist press was moved there. James served as minister, author, editor, and General Conference president. Ellen, a prophetess, reportedly experienced over 2,000 visions. Wow. Married in New England in 1846, both were involved in the founding of publishing, medical, and educational institutions. After James's death in 1881, Ellen traveled to organize the Adventist churches in Europe, Australia, and the American South and West. She's widely known for her writings on health, education, family, life, and the Bible, and is one of the most translated American authors. She died in 1915. So their grave is actually over here. I don't know why they put the sign so far away, but that's a big one. And wouldn't you know it, I mentioned that the Whites just, for some reason, they loved John, and they took him in. They had him run their whole business and everything, and then he turned it into what the Sanitarium became. But over here are his parents, the Kelloggs. So surrounding that, there's James and Ellen's and all their family and everything around there. So I was telling Katie, because we saw their parents up by the Whites, kind of at the entrance of the cemetery. I would have expected John Harvey Kellogg to be there too, because of all the things they did for him and everything, but he's actually all the way in the back. And surprisingly, for a brother that he sued his brother, the cereal magnate, and they sued each other back and forth, never ever remade up. They're buried near each other, it looks like. So John Harvey Kellogg is right here, who we saw all of his crazy inventions. and not so crazy inventions. That's the funny thing. Katie and I watched a couple of documentaries on him. We were like, you know, he had a lot of quackery and a lot of crazy ideas, but they weren't all crazy. A lot of them you see being practiced today. He married one of the women that worked for him. And so from his grave, if you go back here, so he basically, he ran the whole show, the whole sanitarium, and his brother did the books and was like his assistant, William Keith. And William Keith was then, when they started working on the food, kind of put in charge of working on the food. And he wanted John Harvey to market it because Post basically learned from them, used their idea, and became the fastest growing business in the country. And John Harvey just wanted no part of it, so his brother broke off and formed Kellogg's cereal, Kellogg's Corn Flakes, and this is his gravesite. Apparently, John Harvey in his later days did call William Keith to make amends and apologize, and missed him. He wasn't there. He left a message, and the people that worked for William Keith never told him until he almost was on his deathbed. They finally told him that his brother called and apologized. He said it would have changed everything in his life. Looks like this is a child named after him that passed at an early age. Here was W.K. Kellogg, the brother of John Harvey and the cereal magnate. If you like Kellogg's cereal, you see that W.K. Kellogg signature on there, it's his. And on top of this it says the early bird gets the worm. And it's a crazy story because, you know, like I mentioned, that Post basically stole their idea, started grape nuts, and became successful, and so he started Corn Flakes. But then later on, Post came up with the country squares and was slow to get them to market and didn't really do much advertising. They had a kind of a bad, goofy name, and so Kellogg came in, released something very similar called the Pop-Tart, and swept the nation. So they were basically bitter rivals since the beginning, and still to this day. The base of this, it also has his name. Well, now you know the story of the cereal, the town, and the crazy man that kind of started it all. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great night and goodbye.